Litbeit is a humble doctor living in the town of Lindworm. In this town, humans and monsters live peacefully together, although long ago they used to fight for hundreds of years. After seeing a minotaur patient on her upcoming pregnancy, Glenn is speaking to his assistant and childhood friend Sapphee when he receives a letter from Dr. Scaddy, who helped provide the funds to open his clinic. Scaddy is asking the clinic to act as the physicians for the Lindworm arena, and they meet a centaur princess named Tazalea. Tazalea is the heiress to the Scythia Transportation Company and is very wealthy. Glenn starts to see the arena fighters alongside Sapphee. While examining Tazalea, she states that she will soon rule over all the centaurs in Lindworm, and she is looking for a suitable future partner. She starts to flirt with Glenn but is interrupted by Sapphee. After Tazalea leaves, her assistants Kay and Lorna ask if Tazalea has any illness. Glenn feels that she is perfectly healthy, but the centaur assistants are worried because Tazalea has not been able to win her arena matches recently and is on a dangerous losing streak. That night, Glenn drinks with Sapphee, and they come up with theories for Tazalea's problems in the arena. However, Sapphee becomes more drunk as the night goes on and is angry when Glenn wants to see Tazalea at the arena because she doesn't want any more love rivals. Glenn meets Tazalea after she has lost another match to help diagnose her problem, and he realizes after watching her that the issue is with her hooves, which have been worn down because she doesn't wear horseshoes. Tazalea tries to reason her way out of the horseshoes and panics when her attendants force her to participate. Although Tazalea finds the trimming oddly pleasurable, she is scared of the hot horseshoes and has to be silenced by Sapphee. But the shoes work, and soon Tazalea starts winning her matches again. Sapphee remembers when she first met Glenn. It was after the war between monsters and humans, and she was a hostage to his family. After their childhood, their families began to work together and she was no longer a hostage, and she joined his clinic after Glenn went to school to become a doctor. The pair need to buy more supplies for the clinic, so they go to Marrow Waterways, a canal system in Lindworm built for water monsters. The waterways were built by Lady Scaddy, part of the Lindworm Council, who is dedicated to peaceful relations between humans and monsters. After they buy the supplies, they meet a mermaid named Lulala who wants them to buy her song. Lulala wants to sing them a romantic song, and Glenn haggles with the mermaid to trade a medical checkup for listening to her song. After Lulala sings, Glenn sees that can't finish her song and is feeling pain while she is singing. Glenn tests her breathing and determines that she has inflammation in her gills and throat, and he discovers that Lulala spends almost all day outside the water to sing for customers to support her younger siblings. And spending so little time in the water is damaging to the mermaid. Suddenly, a boy falls in the water and Lulala goes to save him. But since Lulala is sick, she starts to drown underwater, and Glenn has to help her by transferring air to her lungs. After she is saved by them, Lulala agrees to take the medications they give her. This helps her recover, and she gets a full-time singing job from Lady Scaddy and is able to support her sibling. One day, after taking care of a slime patient, Glenn and Sapphee are shocked to see Lady Scaddy from the city council visit their clinic. Scaddy is a dragoness and one of the most powerful people in Lindworm, but she speaks so quietly that her bodyguard Kunai has to translate for her. Kunai explains that Scaddy wishes them to find Kunai's missing arm and reattach it. Scaddy explains that Kunai is not a monster but is a combination of human flesh made from a mad doctor, and therefore Kunai does not trust doctors at all and she refuses their help. After she leaves the clinic, Glenn finds one of Kunai's legs in the middle of the street after getting help from Tazalea. He starts to examine the leg, not realizing that Kunai can feel his examination. And later Lulala reveals she has found Kunai's missing arm in the waterways. Meanwhile, Kunai has nightmares about the original owners of her body parts. Finally, Glenn tracks down Kunai and persuades her to accept his help in reattaching her limbs. During the operation, she reveals that the doctor who made her wanted to create the perfect human who could feel no pain. And Glenn tells her that to experience pain is to also experience life, which makes Kunai feel better about her origin. He later attaches her leg and she feels uncomfortable with the process because her leg bindings are very sensitive. After the operation, she thanks him for his help and he heads back to the clinic, where Sapphee says she is pregnant. Sapphee remembers that after their childhood together, they reunited when they both studied under Dr. Scaddy. Sapphire is just joking about being pregnant, and she is actually hiding an egg she got from a friend. Suddenly, their fairy servants spot intruders, and the pair have to hide from attackers who break into the clinic. Kunai arrives and informs them that the attackers are bandits who illegally traffic harpies, and the egg they have must be a harpy egg. They meet Lady Scaddy and Lulala, who has been recruited by Scaddy to help deal with the bandits. Kunai tells them they plan to surround and capture the bandits using the Lindworm patrols, but they are attacked by archers. Kunai defends them, and Tazalea with her attendants appear after they investigate the ransacked clinic. As the raid begins, Kunai confronts the ringleader as they follow the powerful Lady Scaddy to rescue the imprisoned harpy. They find the harpies and Glenn examines them, finding that one of the harpies is suffering from a stuck egg. While Glenn delivers the egg, Sapphee and Scaddy defend the harpies from the bandits. Sapphee is taken out of the fight by a poisoned dagger and wakes up to Glenn watching over her. He tells her that all the harpies were rescued and the bandits were arrested. She later confesses that when she was a child, she was tasked with poisoning him if negotiations failed with their family, and he already knew, and was inspired to go into medicine because of her. Dr. Sethuly has asked Glenn and Sapphee to perform checkups at the Harpy village, so the clinic hires Tazelia and her transportation company to take them to the harpies. However, on the road they experience a rock slide, and Kay suffers from a leg injury. A forward party of harpies arrive to take Kay back to the village, and the rest of the group arrive to meet the elder of harpies. Glenn examines Kay's injuries and determines it is a bad sprain, but that she can recover by using the hot springs in the village. Later, Glenn becomes popular among the harpies during their checkups, and Sapphee becomes jealous of the attention. He later finds Lorna nearby the river, who worries about Kay because the two were orphans from the war that were trained to become soldiers and then eventually adopted together into the Tazelia's family. That night, Tazelia eats dinner with them, claiming that Lorna seems distracted and was acting strange when Tazelia was entering negotiations with the harpies to hire them for her company. The centaurs ask for help investigating Lorna's distraction and bribes them with special wine. Glenn and Sapphee discuss a plan to help Lorna, who they determine is acting strangely because she doesn't have Kay and is crushed by the weight of expectations. Glenn tries sensory deprivation therapy and meditation, which makes Lorna feel better, so they try out more advanced therapy techniques. Tazelia also comforts Lorna, telling her that she loves her attendants. Later, Lorna and Kay thank Glenn for his help. The next day they visit the harpy Illy, who they rescued from the bandits. Illy has been losing feathers and has not been able to fly. Glenn gets the harpy's temperature using her arms, and he determines that Illy doesn't seem to have any illness or sickness. Illy refuses his diagnosis and calls him a quack, almost attacking Glenn before being stopped by Tazelia. Later, Tazelia goes to meet Illy, who is a fan of the centaur's arena matches. Tazelia tries to teach the importance of etiquette, and they end up dueling. In their duel, Illy confesses that she wants to leave the village and she doesn't fit in with the rest of the village. The next day, Glenn finds several of Illy's feathers around the village, and he determines that she is molting. They also find out that Illy is missing from the village. And outside the village, Illy, who loves to fly to escape the world, tries to force herself to fly but can't. The clinic finds Illy and Glenn tells her that he was wrong, and that the colors of her molting feathers indicate that she has phoenix heritage and is not entirely a harpy. Illy's new feathers appear and she is happy she can fly again, proud of her unique heritage. Before they leave the harpy village, Glenn gives a presentation for the harpies and becomes popular. The clinic is later visited by Illy and several other harpies who keep running into spider silk. They go find the arachnid, who leaves too many of her webs about, and find Arania, who is a fashion designer and friend of Sapphee. She came to the mountain to capture Illy as inspiration for new designs. Arania also agrees to no longer leave her webs lying around. Seeing that Sapphee is overworked, Glenn asks her to rest and she goes to the hot springs. And while Sapphee is out, Arania gets a checkup from Glenn for her cold and then leads him into a trap, where she threatens to steal him from Sapphee because she cares a lot about her snake friend. However, Tazelia arrives before Arania can do unspeakable things and defends Glenn. Arania tries to emotionally manipulate Tazelia, saying that her love for the doctor is fake, and the two start to fight. Sapphee arrives to interrupt the fight, announcing that Glenn has no time for love, and the doctor realizes that his assistant has feelings for him before he passes out. That night, Glenn and Sapphee talk about what happened, and Glenn states that his future is with her. They are interrupted by tremors, and the harpies tell them a giant is approaching the village. The harpies treat the giants like gods, and they worry that they have not offered the necessary sacrifice to appease the giant. Tazelia announces an evacuation effort to get the harpies out of the mountain into Lindworm with the help of Arani and the clinic. However, they discover that Tazelia has gone to delay the giant by confronting it alone. Glenn and Sapphee catch up to the centaur and persuade her to help them negotiate with the giant. They meet the giant Dione, who sneezes and tells them she came to the mountain because she heard there was a doctor in the area and she wants a checkup. Glenn examines Dione and determines that she has a cold, and the giant tells him that she started feeling sick 10 years ago. The harpies speak to Dione and find her very nice, and they determine that the legends about the giant being violent must be wrong. To help with her cold, Arania designs cold weather clothes for the giant so she can feel better. With the giant taken care of, the group return to Lindworm. Glenn and Tazelia have dinner together, and Sapphee arrives declaring war against the centaur. Lady Scaddy later sees them and thanks them for her help, but while giving a speech to the inhabitants of Lindworm, she passes out. The city springs into action to help Lady Scaddy, and Glenn is called by his mentor Dr. Sethuly to help. He watches the rivalry between Dr. Sethuly and Sapphee. The octopus doctor reveals that Scaddy is suffering from a rare disease but that she refuses Dr. Sethuli's help in solving the root issue. Although Kunai doesn't want to go against Scaddy's wishes, she travels to the clinic to ask Glenn and Sapphee to sneak into Scaddy's room to perform an examination on the dragon nest. After sneaking into her room, Scaddy tells Glenn that she will forgive Kunai for her trespass, but that the doctor can't help her. Glenn finds that Scaddy has a huge tumor taking over her body. She explains that dragons do not belong on Earth and are changed drastically by the environment, which causes her illness. Glenn refuses to give up and examines her tail and wings, which are sensitive to the dragon nest. The next day, Glenn insists on treating Scaddy, but Dr. Sethuly refuses because Scaddy doesn't want treatment and she wants to die. Glenn announces he will do anything he can to save Lady Scaddy, and they recruit Arania for help. They also go to Kuklo workshop to find Meme the Cyclops for special tools for the surgery. Meme is very clumsy as a Cyclops because she has one eye and therefore no depth perception. They go to her mentor who asks Meme to work on the tools and she is worried that she won't do a good job. Meanwhile, Kunai informs them that Scaddy is still refusing the surgery. Scaddy created the city of Lindworm for peaceful existence between humans and monsters after the war, and since the city is thriving, Scaddy feels she is ready to die. The Cyclops are almost ready with the tools, but they find that Meme has fallen sick. Meme was inspired by Scaddy, who persuaded the Cyclops to create medical tools instead of tools of war. Meme recovers in the clinic, and Glenn determines that Meme has severe pain from motion sickness due to the imbalance that Cyclops suffer. And they discover that Meme got dizzy when she was creating a new machine to create tools through water wheels. They test her work and find that it is perfect for the upcoming surgery. And that night, Meme thanks Glenn for the opportunity. As the operation nears, Glenn begs Scaddy to accept their help. Meanwhile, Arania, Sapphee, and Tazalia work together to prepare the necessary supplies for the surgery. They take a break to have drinks together where they talk about the difficulty of operating on a dragon, and where they talk about the nature of love. After several drinks that night, Sapphee finds Arania stealing from the clinic and they stop the attack. Arania has a suppressed evil side and is trying to work on it, and Sapphee forgives her, promising to support her friend. Through Glenn's help, Arania is slowly losing her evil side, but she feels weird feelings around the doctor and the other girls tell her that she has a crush. Glenn speaks to Scaddy, and she tells him that she hated the war between humans and monsters, and she decided to risk her health to stay on Earth to establish a peaceful city. Now that Lindworm exists, she feels her mission is fulfilled and has no reason to live. However, Glenn tells her that many of her friends care deeply about her and asks her to continue to watch over her city. Since dragons live so long, she wonders if she lives what she should do, and Glenn tells her to eat sweets, visit places, and to find love. Scaddy agrees to the operation and Dr. Sethuly and Glenn begin the surgery. Scaddy's original form before coming to Earth was a fire dragon, so her body emits a high temperature that risks blowing up the examination room. With the combined effort between the two doctors, Dr. Sethuly manages to isolate the tumor enough for Glenn to perform the surgery successfully. The city is overjoyed that Lady Scaddy is saved, and she is excited to live life again. At the clinic, Glenn is treating Sapphee, who caught a cold during the dragon surgery. He goes out to see a patient but runs into Lady Scaddy, whose carriage has broken down. Scaddy hugs him and calls him older brother, to Kunai's embarrassment. Meme arrives to fix the carriage, and Scaddy gifts the two of them 2 large barrels of wine. Meanwhile, Arania visits Sapphee and cheers her up. Glenn later arrives with Tazalia, who brought transportation to help carry the wine barrels, and Tazalia tells him that her father is arriving soon to meet him. At the clinic, Sapphee worries about Glenn and the Harpies arrive with gifts of food from the village. Glenn reveals that he arrived with more food since everyone keeps giving him gifts thanking him for saving Scaddy. Since the clinic has way too much food, they decide to have a feast with everyone. Scaddy thanks Glenn for opening her eyes to living life on Earth, but Sapphee interrupts when she hears the dragoness call him older brother. Soon the other girls arrive and mob the doctor. And this is all for this video. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.